So hey guys, in this video we are taking a look at the Firestick, in particular the 4K Max, and how it performs with VDO.Ninja. So I get quite a few VDO.Ninja users asking how VDO.Ninja playback performs on the Firestick. So if you don't really know what the Firestick is, it is like a set-top dongle for your TV. It lets you watch Netflix, Disney Plus, but it also has a browser built in. So you can actually type in a VDO.Ninja URL and view that VDO.Ninja video in the browser on these devices. So that is pretty interesting. It comes with a remote control as well. And there's different models. So I went with the 4K Max because it has slightly different hardware than the other devices that has an advantage. So I'll look into that in just a second. So let's actually take a look at the Firestick. This is, just how you would have it when you plug it into your TV. I have it connected over Wi-Fi AC, 802.11 AC, although the Firestick Max also supports AX or Wi-Fi 6, I think. So I can just use the control here to go down, and we see that there's a internet, and that opens up the Amazon Silk browser. Now I already have this set up, capturing a VDO.Ninja URL. Okay, so let me show you side by side how it looks. On the right we have the Firestick, on the left we have the source, which is a YouTube video. I'm just screen sharing. I can press this little button on the Firestick to full screen it. So that's a side-by-side comparison with the Firestick going in 1080p, 30 frames a second with the defaults, the default codec. Not super great out of the box, but we'll make it better. What we're seeing right now is the defaults at 1080p with 20 megabits per second set. The device can't really keep up. It's falling behind, and so we're seeing that with the huge delay. If we look at the details, so I actually have, here's the source page. If I hold down control and I click on the video on my Windows machine, we see the stats. So we see that we're capturing 1080p at 60 frames a second. My computer is connected via Ethernet, but the Firestick's connected via Wi-Fi. You can buy an Ethernet adapter for the Firestick that lets you go at 100 megabits per second, but I'm just using Wi-Fi because I think that's how most people would end up using it. Anyways, I have it set to 20 megabits per second via the URL here. So you can set the default bitrate on the sender side, so long as the viewer doesn't have a bitrate set. So outbound video bitrate is defaulting to 20 megabits per second, and I'm getting about 11 megabits, 12 megabits per second max at the moment. The playback resolution is 30 frames a second, 1080p by 30. So we're not hitting that 60 frames a second. We're also seeing that we're getting something called a picture loss indicator count going up, meaning that the system is losing keyframes. It's something's happening to the video. Either it's falling behind and it can't keep up, and it needs to catch back up by skipping data. In that case, it needs to request a new keyframe, or there's Wi-Fi packet loss. We're not seeing much down here, just a PLI count, so it's a little hard to say, but you can see that the retransmitted kilobits per second spikes now and then. Audio bitrate is normal. We're connecting host to host, so this is via the LAN, no internet since we're on a local network here. And the internet latency, the Wi-Fi latency is really short, right? So any sort of delay side by side is being introduced by the system trying to struggle to keep up. It's falling behind, it's skipping frames. So yeah, the default codec being used is libvpx, which is VP8. It's a free codec by Google, but it's quite a bit old. It's quite old, and I'm assuming it might be being decoded in software. I don't know if it's actually decoding VP8 with hardware, which might explain why it's struggling. Okay, not a big deal. Okay, so this is the first test. Now, if I go back to the Firestick, the menu, I can press this little thing and move the mouse around. If I go here, it's really kind of a pain to type in with the keyboard a URL. So I downloaded an app for my phone, and it lets me go to a little keyboard, and I can type in. I can type in with my keyboard on my phone the VDO.Ninja URL, so I don't have to thumb it out with this controller. But I've already set things up, and I have bookmarks here. So because VDO.Ninja, once you set up a stream ID and you get it working, you can bookmark it pretty easily, and then you have it available for just quick access. So we're currently on this one, which is the default. I'm going to go to this bookmark now, which is the same settings, except for I'm specifying a codec of, well, we'll see. Let's check it out. Click to play. Let's check the details. I'm specifying AV1, and when we look for the video codec being used, it's libaom, which is AV1. So this Firestick is actually playing back AV1 video. If you don't know what AV1 video is, it's the newest codec out. It's kind of the future of codecs on the web. It's free. It's good compression. It's going to be supported by more and more devices, more phones, more hardware. Browsers now support it. VDO.Ninja supports it. It gives you good video compression, but it's really CPU intense. So you need hardware encoding for embedded devices to play it back. And this Firestick supports it. Now, if I go here, we can see that there's a comparison of different Firesticks. The Firestick Max, which is what I bought, 3rd gen, regular, the Lite, and the 4K. The older ones are all pretty much identical, just a little bit more RAM on the 4K. But the difference between the 4K Max and the other two is more substantial. One thing is the CPU is newer, and we have a newer GPU. The other ones have an older GPU. This one we have a newer GPU. Why that matters is if we go down to supported codecs, we see that we support AV1 hardware accelerated decoding, where the other ones don't. So for that reason alone, I went with the Firestick Max. That's the most expensive Firestick at the moment. There's a Cube that's even more expensive, but this is what I think most people might be interested in if they are willing to go for it. If you're on the budget, the Firestick Lite might be a good option, but you will not have access to AV1 hardware encoding or decoding. So that's why I bought it. I think I paid on sale like somewhere around $50 Canadian, plus or minus $5. Regular price is closer to $70. You could buy a Raspberry Pi, right? Instead, the problem is you're going to have a hard time finding it. It's not going to come with a power supply. It's not going to come with an SD card. And it only supports 1080p 30 frames a second playback, and not very well. So if you're looking for a cheap embedded solution to play back VDO.Ninja video clean in the browser, like this, the Firestick, whether the Lite or the Firestick Max, are two really good options. Now, unfortunately, if you look at the, go here, we are still getting some PLI count errors. So when I set the bitrate to 20 megabits per second, 1080p, it's still 30 frames a second max, and we're still getting some frame loss. What I'll do though is I'll drop this down to 5 megabits per second, reload the page, screen share, select the right tab. So I'm going to lower the bitrate so we don't saturate the Wi-Fi as much, and maybe take some CPU load off the chip. So targeting closer to 5-6 megabits per second now. And let's take a look at the video. Side by side. It's pretty good. And what I like about AV1 is the colors look really good. Colors side by side, right? The greens are pretty close to the same. The blues are pretty close to the same. We're not getting a whole lot of color distortion. In my mind, it's not so bad. We get really good bit rates. So if you have a remote device, you have an internet, you're getting better compression with AV1. So you're going to get better quality per bit rate. We don't really have a lot of blocky frames. If we're using H.264, we get more macro blocking effects. AV1, we don't get that. So I'm really excited by that. Although I just want to point out again, I guess this is the first time, but I'm still seeing occasional hiccups with AV1. And as you saw, we've now fallen out of sync. So AV1 is still a struggle for the Firestick. Now we are doing 1080p. Let's drop it down to 720. Let me just show what I'm doing. Chrome tab. So I dropped the quality down to 1, which is 720p. And now we'll do side by side. Let's look at the details. Click 720 now we see. It's still 5 megabits per second now. Let's take a look at side by side. Just give it a moment. Not the lowest latency. It's still a little bit behind. But we're getting decent results. I'm hoping that these little hiccups with AV1 can be worked out because it is being hardware decoded. I don't know why it's not performing as well as I would have hoped. So unfortunately, AV1 does not seem to be a golden bullet still, but I'm still seeing really good color rendering. I'm still seeing really good compression rates. And it is pretty good latency, pretty good smoothness, pretty good. Like we haven't had a frame loss so far once we lowered the resolution to 720, but yeah, it's a little bit better than VP8. I think the colors look a lot better, but it doesn't seem to work that well at 1080p. It just seems like it's struggling still. But so far, I haven't done much testing, but so far 720p does look like it's a good number for AV1. Okay, enough of that. Let's look at the next test. Oops. Shoot. Let's go back in. I have more bookmarks. So we've looked at VP8, AV1. Now let's look at H.264. So I have this one bookmarked. It is not autoplay. So you have to, at the very first time, click on the screen. But once it's set up, then it will just keep playing even if a new video comes on. Okay, looking at the details, we see that we are now using, well, I'm encoding with a hardware encoder on the Windows side, but I'm publishing H.264. 720p, 30 frames a second, the same bit rates we had before. If you look side by side, one of the advantages of H.264 right off the bat, in my mind, is we get lower latency. We're not seeing much difference. Let's zoom in on it. This is 720p again. This is not 1080p yet. We'll look at that in a second. I do see a little more blockiness. Just a little bit more blockiness, but it's still quite good. Side by side, we get really low latency. So that tends to be what I see as the benefit of H.264. We do have lower latency. But let's also then go back to 1080p and lock this back up to 20 megabits per second. So really push it. You can kind of see what I'm doing in the top. So you see it auto-played once the video loaded. It's still in sync. Very low latency. No frame loss. You can kind of see here the colors are different. H.264 is losing and distorting the colors where AV1 was not. H.264 is an older codec. It's more stable. It's been more tested, and it has very low CPU load. So it tends to work really well on the Firestick. So if you had a Firestick Lite, I would probably be using the H.264 codec because it has such great performance. We full screen it just to give you an idea. I'll wait for a transition. But that looks good. It's very stable frame rate. If you weren't looking side by side at the color, you wouldn't notice that the colors are a little bit off. And then let's look at the details. The details, 1080p. We are getting 20 megabits per second. So with the H.264 codec at 1080p, we actually are pushing upwards of 20 megabits per second. It fluctuates a bit here. We're not getting packet loss. Very little on that front. No transmitted data. 1080p, 30 frames a second. So this is a very high bit rate. Very smooth, very low latency. So it doesn't seem to be an issue with the Wi-Fi being overloaded necessarily. That's causing the issue. It seems to be more the Firestick when you're using AV1 or a software codec. It seems to be struggling more with the decoding. It doesn't seem to have enough horsepower to keep up. When you switch to a lightweight codec like H.264, it keeps up really well, but you do get more macro blocking and you do get more distorted colors. So my takeaway is if you do get the HD Max, the 4K Max, and with the AV1, you can use that for 720p video. You get really good colors, get good latency, get all good. You get everything good there, but you can't really do 1080p. Technically, you could probably do 4K, but you're probably going to get even worse frame rates. When you switch to H.264, though, I haven't tested this on the other Fire Sticks, but I'm presuming you're going to get still also good stable frame rates, potentially at 1080p, 30 frames a second. If you don't mind a little bit of color loss, that seems to be a really good option, and it might still be a good option on the 4K Max. I've only really had this for a day or two now, so I haven't done much testing. I'll keep working at it to see if I can optimize it more and more. But overall, I'm pretty excited by the results that I'm seeing so far. Now, why you might want this clean output? That's a good question. I've seen a lot of people in the past use an ATEM mini HDMI switcher. So it has, like, let's say 4 HDMI inputs, and it has a built-in hardware mixer. So you can get 4 of these Firestick cards, be under 200 US on sale for 4 HD Maxes, under 300 probably if you get even an adapter for each one as well. And then you could load a VDO.Ninja view link on each one. And so it'll output a clean video into your ATEM Mini for guests, and you can remotely choose what video gets loaded on those individual scenes. In this case, I'm using a push view link, but if you put a scene on it, as a director, you can add and remove sources from each scene. So that's an interesting way to use an ATEM Mini to reduce CPU load on your computer, to use it for a wireless mixer of sorts. In the past, people might have been using a Raspberry Pi, but Raspberry Pis are limited to H.264, 1080p, 30 frames a second as well, but it has lower specs than this, and it doesn't seem to perform as well, particularly when you're using the browser. You tend to be limited to lower resolutions like 540p in the browser. So this gives you better results, potentially AV1 encoding, and it might even be cheaper because you don't have to buy a power brick, you don't have to buy an SD card. Those are kind of included in this automatically. It comes with a built-in memory chip, and it has the power brick included. So, and you can find it easier than Raspberry Pis sometimes. So the Firestick seems to be a viable alternative, maybe a better alternative than the Raspberry Pi. The NVIDIA Jetson is going to be more expensive than all those options. You're closer to $100, $69, I think, plus all the accessories. So close to $100 for an NVIDIA Jetson, but that might give you even better performance. But it's more complex to set up as well. So again, the Firestick seems to be a good option. I went with the 4K Max because of the AV1, and I'm hoping over time that matures better. But just looking at it, seeing how the colors are good, there's no macro blocking. If they can just get rid of the stutter at those higher resolutions, it could be a game changer in some ways. Now, there's one other thing I want to look at. I haven't actually done this test myself yet. I've set it up, but I just haven't looked at it yet. And that is more than one video. So I think this one is a scene. So let's check it out. I'll go to this page and show you what I'm doing. I'm going to screen share the same video 4 times. 1, 2, 3, and these are all with audio. So it's going to be decoding Opus audio as well 4 times. So I've screen shared 4 times. If I go to the Firestick and I hit play, there we go. I'll maximize it. Let's look at details and just look at this one here. Now, VDO.Ninja scales down the resolutions automatically based on the window size. So it automatically lowered the resolution to 540p because each video takes up half the space. Scale factor. So let's look at side by side again. It's not really liking that. Now, I think this is with, it's not, I think this is, what codec? This is H.264. You can see here that we are using H.264 for this, which was the best result we had in the previous test, but, oh wait, why did my YouTube video stop? Oh, still going. There we go. So 2 of them are playing. 2 of them have stopped. Shoot. So it's not. Yeah. That stopped after 17. That stopped after 22 seconds. This one's laggy. Side by side. So it's playing back at least one. That might be the hardware decoder, but it doesn't look like the other 3 are being hardware decoded. Maybe there's only one video that can be decoded at a time. So unfortunately, it doesn't look like you can use the Firestick to have multiple videos active in a scene. So you're going to be careful about scenes. If you add more than one video to a scene, you have to make sure the other videos are not active. Yeah, just keep that in mind. Or you can just use view and push links. In that case, it keeps things simple. You just have a push and a dedicated view link. But yeah, that's not really working. So even though these are 4 videos at 540p each with H.264 codec, it's not playing back. Yeah, not too much of a surprise. This is a really inexpensive device, but it doesn't seem like it can play back more than one video smoothly via VDO.Ninja at a time. It could probably do audio, so keep that in mind. But you're going to want one video playing only. Yeah. Yeah, it's just not having it. It's sending all the video at 30 frames a second. It's just not decoding. Okay. Well, that's the end of the video, I think. I can't think of anything else to show, but I'm excited. The Firestick 4K Max does support AV1, which is really exciting. At 720p, I get really good results, really good colors. And with H.264, I'm not getting as good color. I'm getting macro blocking, but I get very smooth performance, up to 20 megabits per second, probably even more, which is kind of exciting. 1080p 30, so I wasn't able to get 60 frames a second. It might be possible of doing that. It could also be that the Amazon Silk browser's capped at 30 frames a second. I don't know. So hopefully future updates improves things a bit on that front, but still pretty cool. Hope that helps, guys. Thank you for watching, and goodbye.